If you use the internet on a daily basis, and chances are you do, you probably don't put much thought into cybersecurity. You know, your network connections, the pages you visit, the files you download. You should be thinking about these all the time. Welcome to And Security for All. Your host is Kim Hakim. We're here to help you understand, in general terms, how and why your cybersecurity should be kept in check. Now, here is Kim Hakim.
Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another episode of And Security for All. I hope everyone's having a fabulous day. I am here in the Midwest. We were supposed to yesterday, it was supposed to be a little bit of a doomsday for everybody in St. Louis. If you guys are watching the news, we were supposed to have a terrible storms coming through. So we're just coming off of that, and luckily nothing really happened. A couple trees down. It doesn't look like anybody was hurt, so we're all safe as far as I know here in the Midwest. But it is that time of the year. It's tornado season, and my guest today probably knows all about that from where he is as well. So excited for our topic today. We are going to talk about quantum computing, which I'm super excited about because I feel like there's so much information out there that we all have questions about. Today, I have Jonathan Kimmitt, who is the CISO over at Alias CyberSecurity. And Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me back. I'm really excited about the topic. And you were talking about weather. I've got a friend or somebody that, he works here at Alias that's between you and I. He lives in basically Springfield, Missouri area.
Oh yeah, that's where it was coming right up. Yeah.
He showed a picture this morning of golf ball sized hail he picked up out of his yard this morning. So I mean, that weather is here. I think it just now started raining here. So if you hear rain on my roof, that's it.
Well, they were, I was in Toronto. We had our Toronto event last week, which was another packed event. And I was getting a lot of people already sending me, videos of what was coming up through the city. Like last year, St. Louis got hit really hard. And I didn't, I've lived here all my life. So tornadoes, just like Oklahoma City, you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. Nope. Nothing's going to happen. Well, last year it did. My daughter was living closer to the city, and, her apartment, it knocked all her windows out. So she's a little traumatized. She was here yesterday, and, she stayed in the basement all day, and we live in a 100-year-old home. So you think that's not going to go anywhere though, because it's a heavy duty brick home. But the brick homes that were demolished last year, it's very sad.
Tornadoes have a lot of power, and not even tornadoes, just the wind sometimes. It's going so hard that, there's just huge amounts of damage.
Yeah, just before we get on topic, I think it was last year I was with my son and my grandkids, and we were down in Disney, and a hurricane was coming through Disney, and they make those if you're on Disney property, those buildings are made to withstand hurricanes. Yeah. And we were there during a hurricane, and it was freaky hearing the wind hit the door, when you got little kids, right next to you. That's pretty scary.
So, yeah, that would be.
But anyway, everyone, hopefully, as far as I know, I haven't seen too much damage. I've seen some hail damage and trees, but hopefully we all survived yesterday. But it's still, May's just here. So
Yep.
It's the month of tornadoes. So anyway, well, let's talk about something that is just as scary in a way as tornadoes. Today, our topic, we're going to talk about quantum is coming. What does that mean in the cybersecurity world today? And I, just like everyone else, why don't we just start from the beginning, and maybe you can break down what is quantum computing in simple terms.
I can try. I'm going to try. I'll tell you this. I am not the quantum field is so deep, and it has so many pieces to it. I certainly deal with the security concerns, and I've got a pretty good basic understanding of quantum. So for everyone who's in the audience that starts throwing stuff at me because I don't get something quite right, I apologize. I'm just going what I get. Now, the thing about quantum is when we talk about and I'm going to phrase it a very specific way. You know, when we think about our computers right now, our supercomputers, our huge computers, take up whole data centers. It's a very powerful computer and can do a lot of things, but it basically does things ones and zeros. That's, you know, and it does it very linearly, you know, as we think about it. It does this thing, and then it's this thing, and this thing. And you can really think of it as 1 + 1 = something, 2 + 2 = something. A quantum computer, it has this concept of, instead of your bits being a 1 or a 0, which is how most computers think about things. It's either ones or zeros, off or on, yes or no. It has these things called qubits, and the qubits can be 1 or 0 or both all at the same time. Now that sounds very strange, and there is a lot of pieces to it to make it understand that and how to deal with that. But that's when people start talking about the magic of quantum, is that these bits, these qubits, can be in multiple states at the exact same time. Now, how does that actually turn into anything? That's a much harder thing to explain. But think of it like this: if you have 100,000 numbers that you need to add, when a regular computer is going to go through and just add them one at a time until it figures out what the end result is. Some people will say a quantum computer is going to randomly come up with the exact number it needs to be, and then it figures out all the other ones that aren't there and gets rid of them until you have that number. So in theory, it's much, much, much faster to get to the end result than it is a regular computer that's, again, going 1 + 1 + 2 + 3 + 4, and so on and so on. I know I didn't describe that the same way a mathematician may have described it, or a quantum engineer, but that's how I think about it. The other way to think about it is, I heard this not too long ago. It's about, if you have a maze and you've got someone going through the maze, and you've got to do every single time one time until you figure out how to get to the end. A quantum computer puts dozens of you in doing the maze at the same time until there is a success. So it's kind of like that. Maybe that wasn't the best explanation of the computations of it, but quantum can get kind of weird sometimes when you're thinking about those qubits changing states, or being the same state or different states at the same time. It gets out there sometimes.
So how long, this is a two-part question. How long has quantum been around, and why is everybody talking about it? And I always hear people saying at our events, oh, whoa, wait until quantum computing comes. So shed some light on that. Like, what is this fear about?
Well, okay, so the fear is, we'll get to the fear in a second. So quantum, the concept, the theoretical side of quantum has been around for a while. I think it was Feynman who came up with it, or at least really discussed it in the 80s. And there's been a lot of other researchers that have talked about it. And the idea was simple. Again, regular computers are very linear, but when we're starting talking about quantum physics, quantum mathematics, things change. So they've had this theoretical point of view that you could create a system that could figure things out in this quantum way. And so it'd be much, much faster than the old-fashioned computers. Now, again, this is theoretical. So they've done the math side and the science side, but we don't, the idea of the computers itself has been.
I can hear are you getting hail and rain right now? It sounds like my house yesterday. Sorry.
Yeah, no. It looks like it's just rain at the moment. It's really big droplets. So I hope I think it's slow.
Well, that's good.
Dying down a little
hopefully
bit.
Your power doesn't go out in the middle of this. Anyway, go back.
Yeah, that
I'm
would not
sorry
be fun.
to interrupt you on that, but I knew you. I knew you knew we could hear that. So
yeah, no, I've been watching it out my window here just to make sure that it's just some big raindrops. Like you said earlier, welcome to Midwest in the spring.
Exactly. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No. So basically, the concept, as I said before, concept of theory has been around since at least the 80s, and they've been talking about it, and they've been really wanting to have this thing, and the researchers have been working on this thing of quantum in terms of computing for 40 years now. Now, here recently, we do have quantum computers. I mean, the concept of quantum computers is a thing now. They have them. Google has them. Microsoft has them. There's lots of different groups that have this form of a quantum computer. However, they're not very accurate. They're also very expensive in terms of what they are. And I'm sure that is much, much louder to you guys at the moment as well, because I think it just got another run of it.
Well, what if somebody buys a quantum computer? What would the difference be? Again, I'm trying to break this down so we can kind of understand quantum computing 101.
So you can't buy a quantum computer at this point. But what you can do is there are large research firms that have put the time and the effort into a research facility that has some quantum capability. Think of it like this. They have a computer. We have supercomputers. And these are big computers that go into data centers and do all kinds of fun stuff. But then we have quantum computers. Now, a quantum computer, think of it like a calculator that can only add two numbers. These are huge numbers, but it can add those numbers together really, really quickly. But that's all it can do. It's not able to do general use computing like what we think about when we think about a computer or a server or a mainframe. So these it's even more than millions of dollars to run a computer, a quantum computer, with all the requirements of power and cooling and all the things, because those are special requirements right now. But it can only do one little thing. And that's, at this point, adding some numbers together. And I know that that's simplifying it, but that's really effectively all it's doing. It can add some numbers together and do very simple mathematical computations. And the ones that it can do and it's successful at, it can do it much faster than a large computer. But those large computers are so much more powerful. They can do so much more because they're not limited to what the quantum's requirements are. If that makes any sense. I mean, again, quantum right now, as it is sitting, is really just a calculator that can add some numbers or do a little bit of math really, really quickly. Unfortunately, it's only about 60% correct most of the time. So now there's going to be a lot of researchers that are going to just lose their mind to that, because they're putting a lot of effort, a lot of research into making it more correct and making it to where it's being successful. But that's all these computers are right now. When we're talking about a quantum computer. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is to do quantum, you have very strict requirements. You have to, the requirements to run the computer, it has to be in a state of cold, and I don't even remember the numbers, but it's colder than space. It has to be it's the coldest thing that we can create effectively. So to have something that cold to be able to do some very effectively minor computations really, really fast it's almost, I don't want to say it's unusable, but it's not usable for much. Now, in terms of technology, in terms of what they've been capable of, fantastic, but this is how research goes. So they're at a very, very low level of success rate right now with these. It will grow. But except for that one computation, as they're trying to, work on this, there is nothing a quantum computer could do that a larger supercomputer can't do. It just may take it a little bit longer to do it.
So what kind of, who's leading like the charge of quantum right now? Tech companies, governments, or both? And who is this going to benefit? Like give us some examples if you can on like what all of this is going to mean for us, as it develops and becomes more accurate.
Well, I think what it's going to actually provide us is it's new technology. It's going from the vacuum tube to the transistor, in terms of computers. That's what every growth in technology has had this point in time where it's very minimal but is very cool, and it has a lot of potential. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, it's just new technology. It's the cooling part of it, because it has to be so cold to be able to function. That's going to be problematic for doing large scale things. So, I expect we're 10 to 15 years off. I mean, everyone says these numbers, it's 5 years from being 5 years away. But there's so many restraints on it, and it's so difficult to get so many things done in that quantum environment just because of the way it has to function. I think we're looking at a significant time away. Now, you asked me who's going to benefit from this. Well, researchers for sure, because the technology they're using to create these things and the mathematics they're using, I think is absolutely beneficial for other things. When we fully do get quantum, I think the mathematical side is where everybody is concerned, because there is that concern about encryption and about if it can mathematically break encryption algorithms, then that becomes problematic. And so there's, of course, lots of compliance things and security things I'm sure we're going to talk about. So governments would want to do it because they want to break encryption. They would also want to fund it just to have that, the feather in the hat of having a full-blown quantum computer that can do things. But I think we're very early on, even though they have done some great breakthroughs. I mean, again, some of these big names, you got Microsoft, you've got Google, you've got, all kinds of different names. They're putting a lot of resources into this, and they have made great strides. But those great strides from a surface layer point of view are very minimal right now. However, just like with regular computers, they weren't very powerful in the beginning. And then you had that exponential increase of power as the technology got better, as our understanding got better, as the coding got better. So, it could be, I still think we're probably 10 years away before quantum becomes something that is a true risk, just because of where we're at now. There have been some releases here lately. I think it was Microsoft that has created some chips that have the ability to do qubits in there at a much greater scale. Again, imagine a qubit is a decision-making thing. A bit in the world of computers are the ones that are zero, and a qubit could be 1 or 0 or both at the same time. And the more qubits you have, the more separation or dividing of power. That's a really bad way of saying it, but the more qubits you have, the more the computation you can get faster. Because again, think of it as it kind of is a random end result, and then you check that result to see if it was correct. If it's not, you go to the next one, and eventually you get to the right one. And hopefully that process is so much faster than regular linear programming or computations from a computer.
Well, I think you answered some of the questions that I think you answered the next question I'm going to ask you, but why does quantum computing matter for cybersecurity, and why am I hearing cybersecurity practitioners worry about quantum computing?
Well, so for one thing, I'll say that cybersecurity practitioners and professionals, they love the key terms. So again, think blockchain from a few years ago, think AI right now. This next big thing is quantum computing. I would say some of them are doom and gloom. They always think about the worst case, which I do too. I've got to think about the worst case scenario to think about how to do risk mitigation. But when we're talking about quantum computers, the thing that we have to really think about is the fact that when we have full-blown quantum computing, and it can do the mathematical computations in such a speed and power that we've never seen before, then yes, it will absolutely break the encryptions that we currently have. So imagine this. You have attackers that have encrypted data. They have stolen that encrypted data and they're storing it until we have computing power to be able to break it. So let's say they steal a bunch of HIPAA data, but it was encrypted. So if it was encrypted, technically at this point you don't necessarily have to do notifications out to people, because for most cases, if the data was encrypted when it was stolen by attackers, then you can consider it safe, or very minimal harm can come to the individual because that data was encrypted. However, if these attackers hold this data for 5 years and then all of a sudden they can now crack it, because they do have computing resources to be able to do it, quantum computing or otherwise, then that data is now compromised. But it's 5 years later, are people going to remember that? So I think that that's really, when I look at quantum computing, that's what I'm thinking about is, okay, is our encryption right now that we have capable of dealing with the risk of quantum computing in the future? And the answer is no. Most of the encryption, if organizations are even encrypting, some of them are using old encryption algorithms that will probably be able to be cracked pretty easily. There are guidances out there. NIST has guidance. There's a few others that talk about how to, for lack of a better word, quantum proof your encryption so that you can prepare for when encryption becomes, or when quantum becomes a thing and your encryption becomes at risk. So, I mean, those are the things. And as a security professional, we should be thinking about those things. We should be thinking about how do we look at the future and those risks, because if we can implement technology now or processes now that could ensure that that encryption stays in the future with quantum or otherwise. Because, and I hate saying quantum all the time, because it's not necessarily just about whether we get quantum. If we get powerful computers and it's capable of appropriately decrypting something in the future, that's the same risk. It's quantum is really no difference if it breaks encryption than a large supercomputer breaking encryption. It's still broken encryption. So we should talk about this, and we should make sure that we future-proof as best we can, realistically, as we think about our critical data or critical systems, as it were.
So, okay, so all of this is definitely making more sense to me, and I understand now about the encryption. But a question for you is, with AI so progressive right now, is AI going to be able to break encryption?
We have not seen it yet, but I would say that AI possibly could figure out new processes or new decryption processes that could do it. I mean, the thing about encryption is it's mathematics. You know, we're pure encryption is just dealing with numbers. You're doing some sort of computation on the data in a way that the mathematics, the math, it's just math. And I hate this. I don't want to simplify it so much that people get upset with me, but it really is. Encryption is just math. It's very advanced math and it's very cool math, but it is just math. So AI, I don't think it'll necessarily be able to itself crack encryption. However, someone could use AI to create a process or to look at something differently and maybe find a vulnerability in an encryption process. In terms of just raw math output, no, I don't think the AI would necessarily, and this is my opinion, by the way, I don't think an AI anything could do the math. Now, that doesn't mean that the operator on this side of that AI can't guide that AI into doing the mathematical processes to decrypt or to find a vulnerability in the encryption the encryption scheme. But AI by itself, I don't think could. It's a tool, and it's a great tool. And if you have enough power behind it, you can do some fantastic things. But I think it would be that person doing it and guiding the AI to get to the point where you find a vulnerability in one of those encryption processes.
So, security leaders obviously have so much to worry about, so much on their plate every day, just fighting to make sure, they're keeping their security measures safe. Do you think that them worrying about quantum is high on their task list, or how do you think it's affecting them, and what should they be paying attention about
Well,
this?
I so worrying about it, no, because you're right, we have a lot to worry about. So I would not say don't worry about this right now. But what I would say is let's put the planning pieces in place. So here's a perfect example. If you feel like your encryption schemes might be vulnerable, the first thing you need to understand is what encryption schemes are you using. When I go in and I do my audits and I ask questions about what's your hardware inventory, your software inventory, your data inventory. Honestly, I think soon we're going to have to start asking what's your encryption inventory. You need to understand what encryption you're using, where is it at, what ones are vulnerable. And I can almost guarantee you most organizations have some sort of vulnerable encryption right now. It's on an old server or on an old workstation that no one uses anymore. So those sorts of things do happen right now. I think as we get closer to real quantum computing or the real math that could be broken like that, people are going to have to start upgrading their encryption, which is not an easy process for anybody that's ever had to go through and do their certificates in an organization. It is painful ripping those certificates out, putting new ones in, get everything working, all those things. Going through and replacing all of your encryption across the board is going to be just as painful. But it's going to be what you have to do. So if you have vulnerable encryptions right now, you need to know it. If you have encryptions right now, what I would do is get that inventory so you know. And as we move forward, when you replace it, try to use encryptions that are quantum proof, that even though that technology may happen in the future, 5 or 10 years, we all know that the servers gets put in and they stay there for 10, 15 years, 20 years sometimes. You can't have that. If you know there might be a risk in the future, go ahead and put risk mitigation in now if you can, and then you have one less thing to worry about later.
So, when you go in as a CISO and you're assessing a company to see where their vulnerabilities are, I'm sure you have your checklist of what you go through. What percentage is that even coming up in your conversations? What they have encrypted, if they need to encrypt, how important is that for an organization?
Oh, it's incredibly important. And right now we're still at the point of you just need to make sure it's encrypted. That we're not even at the point of thinking about the quantum encryption. A lot of organizations don't even have it encrypted yet. So that's kind of where we're at for a lot of places, is they don't have the encryption in place and they're working to get that. Now, thankfully, operating systems and servers, they're coming with encryption built in. So it's much easier to get it deployed, but it's still, that's where we're at. We're just getting it deployed.
Well, so what are some near term? Do you think that there's any besides, the encryption piece? Is there any near term risk that companies and organizations should start thinking about? Because I'm sure this is, people are still thinking, I'm not going to get attacked, nothing's going to happen to us. And it's, as everyone says, it's not when, it's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think that that's going to be, people will have to understand that there is risk. I mean, as much as I've kind of downplayed quantum in terms of what it is in the world, it's still a risk, and it's still a risk as we move into the future. So I think any good CISO, any good security professional needs to think about that risk and think about it from a point of view of, okay, I don't have to worry about this right this second, but it needs to be in my processes. So we do have encryption. Could that encryption be broken? How would I update that encryption? How would I even know where it's at? And when you're talking about critical services and critical functionality, those are the things that I would start working on right now. It, as it relates to data, your data is critical. You need to protect it. As it relates to systems, if you are using encryption between systems, whether it's access or certificates going back and forth, whatever it is, you need to know what it is right now. If you don't have it, okay, well, you need to get it. If you do have it, do you know where it's at in terms of its level? What kind of encryption is it? Are there vulnerabilities in it? And what do I need to do to replace it? I can tell you, I have been on the back end of trying to replace certificates in an organization, and it was painful. I mean, it was probably 60 days worth of going through and trying to find all the bits and pieces and getting those updated, because you got to have the certificate here. It's got to be the same over here. It's got wildcards over here, and you've got DigiCerts over here, and then you've got your own CA over here. I mean, it's painful. And so get on that now. And here's the thing. As it relates to security, the more work you can do up front, the more pre-security you can get into place, so much better you are in the long run. So if you start working now, then hopefully it's not so bad. I don't think it's going to be a 2000 problem, like we were afraid of everything breaking. But I think it's the more you're prepped for it, the more it's not going to be an issue later.
Do you think that quantum will change security? And, is it going to be more leverage for the attackers, or is it going to be stronger for the, organizations using it to have their encryption coded better? Again, I may not be saying it the way I should.
No, I think quantum is going to be, it's a tool, of course. And as much as you think, I think the hail has arrived. I
hear it.
Yeah, it's those are big.
Well, we'll start to wrap up soon here. We're almost at the end of the show. I don't want your power to go out.
I think that it's going to be a tool. So yes, quantum can break encryption, but quantum can also improve encryption. If you have something so powerful that you can break really strong encryption, you can probably recreate better encryption with the things that you're doing. So, I mean, I think that it's going to be a tool. In terms of hackers using it, I think it's going to be the most risk we're going to see as soonest to us is going to be if they have the computing resources, if it's possible for them to do this, which is very small, because you've got to have certain environments to run these quantum computers, and that's just not going to be available to most people. But if you could run it, I think they're going to be able to get out there and decrypt data that they've already stolen, which could be problematic from a privacy point of view. Now, I don't think they're going to be able to use it to hack things any faster. Again, we have supercomputers that are much more powerful to do that. Quantum is really, again, that mathematical decision making, or that mathematical computation thing. That's where that value is.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show today. I think that I hear that hail, and I'm afraid that any second your power might go out. I was through this yesterday, and ours was off and on, but I think that was a really great recap of just what exactly quantum computing is. I didn't want to go super deep into it today, but I think we covered the basics, and I think that's a good start. And hopefully our listeners that are here today, they can understand a little more. And you did just give some people some advice of what they should be doing for now. Is there anything that you want to leave before we end our show today?
The only thing I would tell people is whenever we're dealing with any of these new concepts, so again, blockchain, AI, quantum computing, it really seems overwhelming. Go out and do the research, even basic research. There's so much content that's out there that you could do some basic things in. And it does break it down into smaller chunks, so it's a little bit more, digestible in terms of the content. Because again, it's scary. It's new content. But I think as security professionals, we deal with that so often that we have to get this process to go, okay, how is this going to, I don't need to know the math. I need to know how it's going to affect my organization. What are the decisions I need to make as an organization? And I think that really helps people because it narrows down the focus of what you're going after. Is what decisions do I need to make about this? And then you start picking up bits and pieces here and there and go, okay, that makes sense. So I don't need to worry about that piece because that's really deep math and that's someone else. So that's, I think, where most people can benefit from it is from a security professional, start with the security side and go, okay, what can we do? What can't we do? How do we do this? What do we need to think about?
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for coming on another episode of And Security for All. Hopefully I'm going to have you back here shortly because I'm going to ask you about another show after this show so we can have the full 45 minutes with you. But I am nervous about your power going out. So everyone, if you have any other questions for Jonathan, you can always ping him on LinkedIn. Jonathan Kimmitt, he's the CISO at Alias CyberSecurity. He's a big fan of FutureCon. He sits on our board of advisors and he helps us out a lot. So thank you, Jonathan, for everything you do for FutureCon. For those of you out there, we're for the rest it's going to be May 1st on Friday, but next week we're going to be in Seattle. Then we head to Pittsburgh and I think Kansas City. We still have the May through December. We probably have at least 18 more events this year. So find us, just look for futureconevents.com. You can always join our events virtually if you can't come on site. So everyone else, have a great day. If you're in the Midwest and you're getting what Jonathan's getting right now, stay safe. And if you have tornadoes or anything, make sure you shelter down. So everyone stay safe, stay secure, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.